Now, you may notice something a little different about my outfit. I do have my paintbrush strapped to my chest, and we are ready to get to dyeing. Now, some things that I did do between episodes was, well, finish the track, and, well, kind of finish it. There's still a lot of decorating that needs to be done, but I also went ahead and got most of the other automation set up, which I'm going to explain momentarily. Now, the reason for that is because, well, most of it is just simply filters, just lots of filters, setting up different filters to send the dyes in different locations. But I also want to go ahead and expand off and get to working with the factory gauges and actually start making concrete, which is going to take part in the factory that is going to be over here. Because remember, at the end of the day, this is not just a dye facility, because we do have the diomat, and a lot of you guys were a little confused about that. I just want to preface again, we can't use the diomat for concrete. Nothing concrete related, unfortunately. So there is still 100% a need for actual dyes, not only for decorative things, but dyes are just pretty cool overall and are easy to just simply use. And also, let's say you wanted some liquid to use yourself, like some dye fluid. Well, you would actually need the dyes in order to make that dye fluid if you wanted to, for example, fill an area with some particular color of dye. So yeah, to clarify some of the comments, which I do appreciate all of you guys commenting on the videos, and it definitely makes a huge difference in the way these videos perform. So if this is something you're interested in, definitely be sure to comment down below what your favorite dye is. I mean, that's definitely something worth commenting. With all this talk of dye, we have the factory behind me and the expansion that has happened between the last episode. Now, what I essentially did was I just added access, and I added a couple of simple farms that we've already technically made to the setup. So we were missing a couple of colors. We were missing white dye, or the production of white dye, which is coming from bone meal, which is coming from our train station, and then brown dye, which is also coming from our train station via cocoa. Those are running through here, and you notice you can dye belts. It's something that's kind of important to the setup, because I did correspond the belts in relation to the dyes that they are going to be carrying. For example, gray is actually the mixing of colors, but yeah, we have white dye that's coming from here, brown dye, for example, and then like purple dyes that are coming from here, blue coming from this way. So this is all of the basic setup that we have. And over here, what I am doing is I am farming cactus, and we're also farming black dye. So green dye here, and then over here is technically black dye from a little tree farm. So yes, the black dye gets funneled in, and I am getting rid of everything that is not oak logs. So oak logs are going in here, sticks, apples, everything else is just simply getting voided for right now going into the setup. It waits until 16 build up. They get dropped into the depot. They also get cooked, and they get turned into charcoal. And that charcoal is then crushed and turned into black dye. It's a nice, reliable way of getting black dye. So all of that is then being mixed, and this is the important part before we start working on using these dyes, and that is, how am I actually formulating the mixtures? There just so happens to be only a few dyes that actually need mixing, and that is, we have light gray, lime, cyan, and also light blue dye. These all require white dye to be able to make, so that's why you don't see them constantly producing, because I haven't set up the train yet, which we're about to do. But yes, they will mix. Now in the back, we have things filtered very specifically, and on these filters, for example, this filter right here, it has blue and white. Now, the reason that I have that set up is because it's one blue and one white to be able to go in here. So every time we have a set of blue that comes along, I have it set to only pull one off of the stack. And then over here, we need to make sure that these are set up to only send out once there's a certain amount of them that have actually built up inside the chest. This whole belt assembly line is really all about holding items and waiting, because if I was just send them all out at once, it would completely, fill up the belt line, and this would have nowhere to output the items, and things would really start to back up. So that's kind of my concepting behind all of this, and I hope it's not too confusing. And yeah, this is really simple. I mean, in the grand scheme of things, super simple right here, because we just have two different dye colors coming from locations. The hard part is actually setting up the trains. So now that we know where these dyes are coming from, it's probably time to explain how I'm actually sorting them. And that is where the power of brass tunnels come into play, because brass tunnels have some really interesting functions that allow you to split belts off and then choose where those destinations are going. But not only that, this setup allows you to also have a pass-through if these belts fill up and these storages fill up and there's nowhere for the items to go. well, they will build up on this belt, assuming that this block right here is a solid block, which I do have to fix for all of these, by the way. So this is going to be a solid block behind here. If you do not put a solid block behind these, the items will actually bounce around and unfortunately will just spill out into the world. Kind of bad. But yeah, these do need some sort of solid block, a folded trapdoor, just something behind them. Anyways, that is kind of besides the point. When this fills up, the only place for this pink dye to go is straight through. And then the only place it can actually go is to continue along this way. And then at the very end right here is lava. So at the moment, I am going to be voiding the dyes when they overflow, but I would love to actually shut them off. It is going to require a little bit more logistics to shut off the power to, for example, this setup here. But I would really like to turn them off individually, but that's going to sort of require a little bit more redstone. We would need to change this whole setup here as well. I don't know. There's a whole lot to this. As of right now, I'm just voiding off excess. And this isn't going to really be running unless I'm AFKing here anyways. Well, you know what? With chunk loaders, this actually might, because I do need this loaded for trains to work. I mean, there's a whole lot going on in the background. So now, as you can see, each of these are filtered for all 16 colors, and I have my belts running up, and we have them organized as such, and I have all of the belts dyed for the exact colors that they're associated in running to. And so, yes, this is the farm. I mean, I do have to use saws for this. For cactus, you have to use saws. But the saws are collecting the cactus, and then we have a normal tree farm if you want to kind of look and see how these function. I mean, you just want to make sure that your deployers are behind your saws, so that way immediately after your saw has broken the tree, it will place down those saplings before the saplings end up getting sent into the storage interface. So kind of an interesting concept here. This one's very simple too. We have an interface up here that is connecting and just sending that cactus to then be milled. And that's really it. It just takes a little bit of time to set these little farms up. And so after all is said and done, this right here is the factory. And this is technically producing all of the dyes, but we're missing one thing that allows this to work. We need our train to send over the cocoa. We also need a train to send over the dye. Sorry, not dye, white bone meal, just regular bone meal. Well, you can tell these complex logistic videos are really getting to my brain. Now we're about to dive into the trains and how this is working, but you might notice the train tracks look somewhat finished. And that's because I did this. And believe it or not, after all of that, I ended up using nearly 100,000 gravel to lay all of these tracks in. I mean, the parts that were the craziest were the parts that went into water, but I have a plan for those in the future, as I do want to make little openings inside of here that make it look like water is able to still pass through. I had the idea of originally covering the entire landscape here, but I think it's going to end up happening on a build by build basis. And that's because it would be quite an overwhelming process, I think, to literally cover all of this. So now that we've established our train and we have it somewhat pathed in and decorated and looking mighty fine, if I should say so myself, it's time to actually get the trains over here and get our factory gauges requesting things. So first things first, we need to make sure that we keep a certain amount of bone meal requesting and going into this vault. So I do have a packager on here, and the goal is to do this the same way I did my chocolate factory over here, and that is to set a certain amount to constantly be sent to this vault if it does drop below that amount. And it should. We should be constantly using bone meal. We just want to make sure that requests are being sent until we, well, inevitably run out of bone meal. But thankfully, we do have a constant supply of it, and that's going to constantly supply white dye and many of the other ones that are mixing. So let's go ahead and get this set up. To do this, I need to get cocoa, and I also need bone meal, and I need them to be sent over here. So the first thing that we got to do is we got to link these two to the stock links that are on the corresponding, the trees over there, to the corresponding containers that are in our main storage right here. And good old partway station is going to help us with that. Now I just got to remember which one I click on. For example, one of these is cocoa. So this is cocoa. So I'm going to go ahead and make sure that's linked to cocoa. This is the bone meal vault. So I will link the right one to the bone meal. And then whenever we place this over here, we just need to make sure to set the right items. And we need to set how many to keep in stock and the address that we need to use. And this is going to be important because we need to know what those addresses are, because we have to put them in a list filter on our receiving end. And I know I've been getting a lot of shade for doing it this way instead of using like the actual mailboxes, but I don't know, something about this just feels right. I don't know. I don't know what it is, but anyways, there's this one, which is cocoa. And then this one, which is on another network. Let's go to make sure to put cocoa on here. And then we'll actually set our addresses. Now this is going to be bone meal. This is like the hardest part of today, I think. And then inside of here, this is where I want to set my addresses. Now I do have them listed here. And I think if I put this nearby, you guys have told me that this will work. Do I have to like put a star on something? I don't actually know. It doesn't seem like it's working. Doesn't pull the direct. Maybe I don't know how to use this function actually. Either way, I just need to copy this address right here. And then we need to put that address there for the cocoa. And then this one we want to copy. And I want to put it inside of this one. So we just have dye, bone meal. Just want to make sure that it's a different name than what we're actually using in our chocolate factory. And then I want to do the same thing with these filters right here. So we need one of them that's dye, bone meal, and then we need the other one to be the cocoa. So they just need to have the same thing on them. That's all that really matters at the moment. And then put both of them inside of a list filter, and then make sure that list filter is on the receiving end of this interface. And then we just need our main train that's looping around here to now loop through here and make it around instead. So after it's finishing doing this, it'll then come back through this way, and then we need it to stop here. So time to change our schedule again on our big boy train. By the way, something that we also need to do is go ahead and set this to pull in some stacks. I think for right now, I'll just say pull in a couple of stacks. That way it does its initial request. But it'll only end up requesting more after it has started to use them, which it definitely will. This is set, I believe, to pull an entire stack. This side over here is also sending out sets of 4, which will end up going into the item vault. So I've now taken over control, and thankfully at partway station, I don't have to worry about where my train is going over there. So we have all of our stations set up. The only thing I have to do now is just add a new station right here where my train should, I think, connect. We'll have to see. Let's make sure that lines up perfectly. And there should already be packages, I think, on it. Yes, and you can see those packages specifically are filtered. There's the bone meal already heading out. And I just want to get this as close to possible as it being lined up. Oh, and this is great. This is already lining up just like I want it to. This is fantastic. The bone meal is heading out. The packages ended up going into the vaults. And there is everything now working. And we can see that our dyes are fully being processed over here. So we'll get this train station set up. This will just be like the dye station. And so now with this labeled dye depot, we can go ahead and we'll take a look at our actual list. We need to add a new place. So this is cocoa unload. This will be the next stop. So it's actually just going to get simply added right here. And dye depot, we'll add that to the list. And we probably want this to wait a little bit longer than this. So we'll have this stop. I mean, it shouldn't require that much time. So about 20 seconds, give or take, that we'll just have it stop there and wait to unload the packages. It shouldn't require anything more than that. And this is a pretty simple addition. So we add this like so, and then down at the bottom, we just want to make sure that we skip all of these and we just head to the next one. Yeah, partway unload. That is going to be the next station. So when I put this in, it should go straight and wrap around. At least so I hope. There it goes. And it's off. And now we have a train that is also going to be running over here. And I did go ahead and get most of my train signals in. I think the train signals should be fine. The way they are currently set up. Yeah. So after getting the train up and running, things are looking pretty good. It's about to travel along here. It's going to park right back through here, and it's going to deposit the cocoa, and it's also going to deposit the bone meal. So now that this is going, we can now see that every single one of these, we have some dye starting to build up, and every single thing has some sort of dye in it. And these vaults right here can store about 15,000 items in this particular capacity, which I think is plenty of dye. That's going to be more than enough. But now I need to start thinking about concrete and all of the things that are required to make concrete. So we still need 2 more vaults to be added to this. One is going to be vaults that is going to contain gravel, and one that's going to contain, well, sand? Yeah, those 2 things make gravel. And you know what? We could probably use some of the leftover cobblestone that this cobblestone generator is making. It makes 8 cobblestone every operation, which is quite a bit, and it is already filled. So what I could do is I could just run a belt over here and then just have this broken down into gravel and have the other broken down into sand. Now I just need to squeeze in here a little bit to be able to place in a belt. And yeah, this is where things get a little bit wonky, but if you didn't know, you can actually have belts do things like this. So let's go ahead and reverse this direction. Oh no, we don't want to reverse it, right? We want to keep it the same. So if you didn't know, you can actually go off of a belt onto another belt going up one. Like, there's a lot of weird mechanics that you can do that honestly, after you do them once, you're like, wait, that totally makes sense. But once you understand that belts can be funneled onto from all sides, including the bottom, it makes a whole lot more sense to do it this way. Now, I do need to get this belt down here powered, and we also need it going the same way. So what I could do is I could also technically use a belt. And I think this is probably one of the easier ways to do it. Perfect. So now we have a belt going down, even though this belt is honestly doing nothing at all other than just simply routing power. What we could also probably do is use cogs, but no, that would have reversed the direction. So there's a lot of thinking that I'm doing here. Now, this is just simply going to get a chute. I do want to remove this temporarily though, because this is going to be spitting out materials, but there's nowhere for it to go yet. And then we also need another one of the crushing wheel setups over here that is primarily going to be used for making all of the sand components, but we also need a way to filter those items out. So I'm probably going to place underneath here a voiding setup that is going to void. Let's see, we are going to need this. That is going to void off the flint and the clay that is going to be produced, because we just want sand going in here and gravel going in here. Now, I'm thinking the easiest way to handle this is going to be to deny sand. So we don't have to add multiple things in here, just simply deny sand, place that in this filter. And then on this, we'll use a brass filter. And this brass filter is going to only accept sand. That way, all of those byproducts end up getting thrown down here. They make their way into a cauldron, and that cauldron has lava in it. And I think we almost have everything ready to go. I just got to get this belt over here powered up, and that should split our gravel that is being generated from the crushing wheel. This goes in here, produces the sand products. It's going to fill into this vault. And we do want this to back up, so we do want to make sure that that is cleared off there and also cleared off on the other side. Definitely learned my lesson on items sort of building up here. It doesn't take very long to create a nasty mess. So now, fingers crossed that this works. We'll go ahead and drop in the funnel that should spit out some cobblestone, 16 at a time to be processed, split into 8. Be very careful not to walk onto this. I think I can prevent myself from being pulled into this if you like cover the top with like trapdoors. Yeah, probably a good idea. You know what? Or even better yet, we could cover this with girders like so. Yeah, that makes it look a little bit nicer as well, also preventing me from falling in. That's not good. So now with the constant supply of gravel and sand, I can actually start to produce the factory, but I do want to use the actual frog ports for this. So we are going to be handling this with the chain conveyors, and I've got to have a place for the chain conveyors. And because I built these tall like this, I have to have it up in the air as well to link them. Because remember, with the frog ports, you can't have the chain conveyor under the frog ports. So we've got to make sure that it goes higher, and this sort of solves that problem. So we're going to have one long chain conveyor that runs all the way over here, connected to the bottom of this log. And this is going to be the outer wall. And then it's going to move into an alleyway area. And then right above that, which is where I'm going to carry this, is going to be where we actually deposit all of the stuff that is going to make concrete. And this just allowed me to remember something. What we should probably do is have all of this contain all of our different dyes, but we have one vault that is this size right here and extend this building a little further. And this will be considered the main. So that way we can handle everything much simpler. We can have our gravel from this one, sand, be stored also into the main, and we can have a stack of every dye also stored into the main. And if you remember how I ended up doing our factory, this makes life so much easier as you don't need like the combiner or anything to like recombine things. We can just simply have it sent and stored directly inside the mixers that we're going to be using to make this concrete. Now, slowly I am getting the foundation of the other factory in, and I have all of my different containers that are going to house our ultimate product, but I need a bit more slime. We're going to be using a ton of frog ports for this, and we're also going to need a ton of factory gauges. So that does mean I'm going to need some slime, and I know just where to find some slime. That is over here at Eggs's Diomat. So believe it or not, there is a vending machine in here that does provide slime. So if I drop, oh, that was all of my diamonds. It's only supposed to take one. Eggs, just sneakily go behind the scenes here. All right. Make sure to only put one diamond at a time in there. Perfect. Now that I have all of that, it's time to actually set up the frog ports. Now, for this to work, we need to get dyes from here, and we need those dyes to be sent into that main, which means that we are going to need to do a little bit of a interesting setup, and same is going to have to happen here for our gravel and our sand. And that means up here, we are going to have frog ports that are going to have factory gauges on them that are essentially saying, hey, send items and make sure to keep them in stock up here. But unfortunately, we can only put a few factory gauges per side. I mean, I could technically probably fill this up with factory gauges. Like we can have it on the top. We can have, actually, we can't have it on the top. We can only have it on the sides and the back. So, I mean, I bet this is probably more than enough to be able to handle all of this, which is going to be 16 factory gauges plus 2. Oh boy, 18 factory gauges just to send items into the main here. But on this, we're going to have a couple of frog ports for right now, just to make sure this all works. Just so we all understand how expensive this is going to be, every single one of these are going to need a stock link on them, because that's where the factory gauge is going to read if it has the ability to actually send those products or not into the storage. Now, something I forgot to do that is going to make putting the factory gauges on here a lot easier is on the actual stock link itself. I should have gone ahead and right-clicked this. That way, all of these stock links are on the same network, making it a whole lot easier to manage. This is going to allow me to only need to click basically this stock link. That way it can read every inventory that's connected to it on its own network. And this network is simply just going to be a supply network. Now, before I go placing in the frog ports, we do need to label these frog ports and actually get them linked up. So these are going to be the ones that actually insert into the main here. So yeah, I guess I can go ahead. Can I link that one there and then move over ever so slightly, like right here? Put that one. And then on this one, we go here. And then ever so slightly over. Perfect. For that one. Now, all of these are going to have the same name. And I think what we'll do is we'll call this main underscore CA. But this will be main die. And we need to keep this in mind because this is going to be what collects everything. And I guess we could maybe, I don't think we have to rename them all differently. Oh, we might have to, like we do 1, 2, 3, and 4. And on each set, maybe, actually we might not have to worry. Well, this does need to look at the request. Oh, this is where things get a little bit confusing. And I wonder if it's just confusing at the moment because I am going to be using multiple ends. So yeah, I think I'm just going to do main die 1 and we'll set them all in subgroups. There's only going to be 4 dies each per packager here that are going to be factory gauges. And that's just to keep this vault in stock. Like I said, it just makes the requester a whole management system a little bit easier to handle. Oh, and you know what? The more I think about this, the more I'm understanding, yeah, no, it's not going to be that big of a deal at all. Like this is going to be set like so. And then on here, whenever we place in these gauges, we're going to have the ability to set their address after we already place in the dies. For example, this die, and then we just select the one that it's actually tapped into, and it's going to automatically name it this package for this frog port. So that'll be pretty easy. It'll just pull it out of the inventory that it exists in, automatically names it as that package, and then this will be the specific frog that picks it up. Now, with all of the factory gauges set up, before I start telling this thing to actually send items out, well, we're going to need to have all of our frog ports linked up to the chains, much like that. Now, without further ado, it's time to send a request. Let's say 1 stack of white dye, and there it goes, and there it is received, and we now have white dye in here. So I can actively keep 1 stack of every single dye in here, and we should start receiving those packages now, and we can now use this in our main system, which we can have, for example, the collectors right here, and then we have the cinder frog right here, which is going to handle all of our mixers that we're going to have over here. Now, this is where things are going to stray and get a little bit more complicated, because we are going to request auto crafting. However, we need the main to get the items back to fulfill the promises. So over here, I have all of my mixers that are going to be mixing the dyes with the sand and the gravel to produce the concrete powders. But what is going to end up needing to be done is those products are going to need to be sent back to some sort of thing, whether that's in the middle or what have you. Just needs to be conveyed all the way back in their package form, or item form. Those then need to be repackaged and sent back into here. So then from here, what we want to do is then send all of the individuals specifically into these separate vaults. And this is where, like I said, things are going to be a little bit different, because I want these to be where our concrete is actually stored. So what I'm thinking is we have a belt out here somewhere like this, I think could work. And this is where these will be output, and in the back is where we're going to have the frog port set up to pull the items in. Something I also always forget to do that I need to do is have these only send packages back over here on our dies, just to make sure that it doesn't randomly pick up a package that doesn't have anything defined. I think it can just pick up anything if nothing's defined, which is not what I want. I want these to only send. Now, back to the actual mixers, we should be able to get away with just having the inventory be the basin that the packager is looking at. And this should make it a little bit easier, but can cause some weird jankiness. But I think that this is going to be more than fine, as our request shouldn't send a whole lot. And it should be able to manage everything. I mean, and I think this does have an overflow ability, which is kind of weird, but it does work. Now, for each of the frogs, we are going to need to define a specific name. And for this, I'm just doing craft underscore, which is exactly what this is doing. For example, I go to edit, and then we do brown for the brown dye. And I could have probably gotten away with significantly less of these and probably only use really 1 basin to do all the mixing, but I wanted this to be on demand. Like, these are not going to store very much, like 3,000 of them in stock. So I want them to be able to be crafted very quickly. And I think this is one of the fastest ways to get that crafted. Thankfully, this will craft. I think each operation does craft quite a bit. Like whenever you do this craft, you get 8 concrete powder each operation. So, I mean, it is going to generate it really, really fast. That's why I decided to go with these smaller vaults. Oh my goodness, I didn't realize this is how the clipboards works. I've been doing this whole time. And yeah, I just need to go through here and click the frog ports, and it adds them to a list. Why didn't I realize this? I know you guys have been letting me know about the clipboards in the comments, but I didn't realize, like, this is how it works. And then when these are on here, you just place it near the factory gauge, like on the wall. This is going to make it so much easier, because I thought I was going to have to copy all of those. You know what? Best time to learn something like that, especially when I'm doing big projects like this. This would have helped me so much when I made them all. What's wrong with me? With all the frog ports named, we need to take this, which is our main cinder. And knowing that this is our main cinder, it needs to have its own separate stock link. And this is where all of our factory gauges for our project over here is going to need to be linked to. Well, besides these... Actually, no. Yeah, everything just needs to be linked here, right? Because this is where we're going to define our gravel. We just need a place to actually put all of these. And you know what? This little spot right here might be a great place for a little board. And you know what? It doesn't need to be like super fancy or anything. I just want to have a little display board. I want some tuff, but I want the tuff to be actually laid on its side. So let's see. Yes, we want it like this. That way it defines this like little board shape. And let's see, I'm going to make it as tall as everything else. And that should be perfectly fine. So the main thing we need to define with our factory gauges is on here. Let's link everything. We want this factory gauge to say, hey, we have gravel and we have sand. And then all of the dyes are going to be supplied up here as well. And then we need a layer that is going to be our concrete. And yes, we need to send concrete into here and then have that concrete sent out of here into here. I know it sounds like a lot, but the goal is for it to constantly make it until about a stack fills up inside this item vault. And the reason it's not going to fill up right away is because we're also going to be immediately sending what this gets out here into these. Like, I'm not crazy by doing it this way. At least I hope not. Now, this also just made me realize that I probably want 16 of the gauges here. So that means quite a few gauges, right? That's going to be lined up like this. And then I'm going to have 16 gauges on the other side that are actually going to be crafting gauges. So we need 16 gauges to define the stock of the dyes. And then we need 16 gauges to define this. There's so many gauges. And oh my goodness, what if I wanted to dye terracotta? Oh wait, that's right. We can actually dye terracotta in the diomat. Okay, yeah, never mind. So now with all of these factory gauges in place, I just need to define all of the dyes. So this is going to be one at a time, setting just our main ingredients, right, on this side. So this will be our ingredient list, or I can make this top section our ingredient list and the bottom what's actually being crafted here. Either way, I've got to figure out some way to get this all in, but I already have my sand and my gravel in place. So beautiful. Now that I have this set up, all of our dyes, we can actually start to set up all of our concrete. So yes, concrete one at a time. I am going to be lining this up in rainbow order. And for each of these, we are going to be doing a connection, and we're going to say, hey, connect here, and then we just need to connect and select the color. And then that should define the recipe. We have to set these to 4. And then we say 4 here. And that's going to have to happen for each of these. And then 1 dye. And the fact that that produces 8 should get the job done. And I have my board placed over here. So I'm hoping I can select this and type white. And actually set the destination as well on each of those. And that should be everything we need to do to actually get this to function. I just now have to do this for every single one and hope that I don't make any mistakes. And so I have all of them linked, and I think I did them all correctly. Like, this looks like everything is just the way it's supposed to be. And I really hope that it is, because we do need to send an operation just to make sure. And these are all spinning, so that should collect. And our closest one is here, so let's have this request a single. That should send that out, and it should make its way into there. And then everything else will restock, just like you've seen here. Oh, that is beautiful to see. Okay, so this is functioning, and we have everything we need. We just got to give this some power to turn this on, and then we need to create our main network. So that's what these frog ports are going to be doing. So they just need to be labeled main, just like we did at our other mall factory. And this is going to work perfect. We just label them main and main CA. And we just copy that onto all of them. And that's just what we're going to be putting on the signs that are the senders, which are over here. So remember, whenever we are automatically sending out, we would just want the name to be on the actual packager. That is going to forcibly apply the package name and give this a redstone signal, and anything that goes into this barrel is going to be the thing that gets sent in. So, for example, everything is going to end up rolling into the belts off of here, and this is going to go onto the depot, which will get sucked into the barrel and sent out. Perfect. After getting this powered up, I just realized that if I put a redstone signal onto this side, oh, it does cause a little bit of problem. So let's take our concrete out so we don't end up getting that messed up over here. And I do probably want to move the sign then, and we'll move the sign to the back, and then we put the redstone signal, I think, on the front, and that shouldn't carry the redstone signal through, or at least I hope it doesn't. Place that, call it main, and then redstone signal on the front. Perfect. And then that doesn't actually cause any problems, and then that should go in, send a package, and that should complete the promise. Wait, no, it can't go anywhere because even though the frogs are here, I didn't actually define the frogs. Okay, so I do have to change this because I didn't actually tell them where to pick things up from. I mean, that would definitely help, wouldn't it? So now that I define that, then it gives it a place to go. And I like to have multiples just in case, like it does overfill this particular area. It gives it a little bit of time to pick up from these. I mean, but honestly, we probably don't even need this. This might actually just be like overkill, like complete overkill. So now we've almost got this finished. Like we're basically there. We just now need to tell this, hey, send that concrete powder into the vaults. And to do this, our cinder frog is going to be the network that we are going to be looking for. And we're going to have all of our factory gauges linked to that. And that means that for this, every single one of these needs a packager on them that are all going to have a factory gauge telling it, hey, keep a certain amount in stock. And that is going to be it. However, we do need frog ports on the top of these, and every single frog port is going to have an identifier on it, much like we used over here. But thankfully, this isn't going to be as difficult. We ain't going to have to write it down or anything because we've done this method before. It is very, very simple because the frog port automatically, like the factory gauge automatically recognizes the name of the frog port. This is the last major part. We just have to select the main so we can see its majority stock. And then we come over here and every single one of these is going to have to receive this to keep it in stock. So yes, all of our hard work is definitely paid off. All of our brass gathering, copper gathering, everything needed to make all of these is now paying off. And we are about to have every single dye color in stock. And if you've made it this far into the video, you're about to be rewarded with seeing this factory kick off, because we're not starting it until all of this is done. And as soon as we set up our requests for these things, oh, this is where things are going to get really, really cool. So now all of them are in, all of them are set. Oh boy, this is going to be interesting. Okay, so what we need to do now is we essentially need to set the amount here. So for example, we'll say keep a stack in stock. And as soon as I set all of these to one stack, this thing is really going to start ripping. This is all going to start working. And this whole thing has now started. Oh boy. This is going to be ridiculous. But it is going to generate that stack, I think, really, really quickly. And this only needs to be set to a stack because I only want a stack in here at any given time. And I want that main stack to then be pulled out. And like I said, sent into our main storage area. But look at this. This is really cool. All of these should now be working. And you can see the packages get sent back over there to keep in stock. And now we can make it go even crazier, right? Because we now need to say, hey, keep this in stock. And I don't know how many stacks. I'm going to have to count this up, right? It would just basically be 3 times 20 to have this maxed out. So we can only ever have a maximum of 60 stacks of blocks inside of each of these. And that's what I want to set it to, is 60 stacks to keep in stock, which is roughly 3,000, give or take. So now just look at that. All of this hard work set up so that way we can produce all of these concrete powders. I mean, this one should be coming in, I hope, anytime soon. Did I set this one correctly? 60 light gray. I just got to make sure that we are at least receiving some of these. We should be receiving all of them, I think. And you know, honestly, it could just be the rate. Like, this just can't send out fast enough. We could do a separate network sending out for all of these specifically. I'd have to relink and reset them, but if you give it enough time, this is going to work. And I mean, just looking at this, it's like a work of art, watching all of the frog ports do their thing. Oh man, especially on the main, it goes absolutely ridiculous. Now, I think that is what I'm going to do. I'm actually going to reset all of these, and I'm going to have it on its own separate, sender. So yes, this will have its own separate link, just like that. And then I'll just get these relinked to this particular frog port. And this will also do some sending. And I also had it sent to the outer band, so it should wrap around, kind of preventing it from being placed on the same location. So here we go. We're going to kick this back off again. It's settled there for a minute because I removed this, but now that it's going to be doing these requests, oh boy, it's going to really jump back up again. And so now you can see the wild mess that is all of the packages moving about. And yeah, this just leaves me to do one more thing to this whole area, and that's going to be decorate it. Because I think as of right now, I mean, everything is working. So now it looks like it is successfully working, just as I was hoping. And we do have a little bit of everything building up. So now you can see we got a little bit of concrete powder, 2 stacks of that. Everything has at least something, which means it has generated, and it means I haven't messed up. Oh, which is very, very nice. Now, the reason we have these set up like this too is because I also want to get shulker loaders and yeah, have a dye color for every single shulker box. That way, if I want to bring it to a market or something, I can do that. And we can use Ex's shop to buy those shulkers, and the loaders are really, really easy to set up. So if you haven't seen how I've designed these loaders, it just involves item drains. And then on the item drains, we place like a some sort of scaffolding right here. Thankfully, the item drains don't just like send the items, you know, all willy-nilly. And yeah, we need to have a shulker box, for example, like this, that just goes here. And there's going to be a funnel, a brass funnel on this side, and an andesite funnel that collects here. Not that way. Stop it. There we go. I love how it bounces off the wall and goes right back in. I didn't actually know it did that. But yes, that has now completed. Let's do this. And you can see that will then send out. And if there is no shulker box, for example, it just actually holds the item right here, waiting for a shulker box to go in its place. So now here we go. This is it. This is all of the concrete automated. And my goodness, is it a beautiful factory? Well, technically 2 factories. And I can't wait to make this look even nicer. Remember, this is going to be like a open area that's going to have an overhang. This is the actual internals of the factory, and I made sure they lined up. This will be like a little alleyway that's going to have this supported between the 2 buildings. It's going to be really cool to like see this and see this like walking path, and there's also going to be a walking path out front. Oh, it's gonna blend together, but it's gonna take some time for me to be able to get this done. And be sure to follow me over on Twitch so you do not miss when I do work on that, because it will most likely all be handled over there, and there'll be a little bit of in-betweens that are definitely me explaining while I'm doing some of this. But yes, I cannot wait to get this building up and running. But now I tell you what, that is a really cool scene, being able to see behind me all of the concretes lined up like that. And so now with this, all of the dyes are ready to go, and I look forward to the next episode. If you guys did enjoy today's episode, be sure to click that subscribe button if you haven't already. And of course, don't forget to comment down below which dye is your favorite dye, and or which dyeable block is your favorite dyeable block. I would love to know about that down in the comments below. Now, if you haven't followed me already over on Twitch, definitely be sure to do that as well. Twitch.tv/ChosenArchitect, where I do live stream a lot of the behind the scenes stuff that goes on in the making of these videos. So be sure to check that out. And also join my Discord, discord.gg/ChosenArchitect. We have an amazing community over there, and I'd love for you to join. And now it's time to say thanks to the amazing supporter of today's episode. And that amazing thanks is going to go out to Mojo Spike. Thank you so much for your amazing support and choosing to support me over on the Discord by becoming a Discord premium member and supporting me in one of the best ways possible, and absolutely going above and beyond, you absolute boss. And guys, I hope you enjoyed. I look forward to seeing you in the next one. And as always, thanks for watching.